Everybody, Assalamu alaikum. So today we are talking about effective communication skills for leaders. So the role of communication and effective leadership with Kamal Masri, who is a life and leadership coach on Faith Consulting. So we'll just wait for him to join. Oh, I can see he's joined, mashallah, very fast. So Kamal, I think you've got it. Perfect. We'll just wait for it to connect.
Hi, Dana.
Hi,
Assalamu
Assalamu
alaikum.
alaikum. How are you?
How are you?
Good, alhamdulillah.
Okay, great, great. I'm in.
You joined so quickly, mashallah. That's the fastest anyone joins.
Okay, that's
I
great.
usually have to sit and talk to myself for 30 minutes just because the person hasn't joined yet. So that's perfect. I was introducing you, Kamal Masri. You're the life and leadership coach on Faith Consulting. You're going to be talking today about the role of communication in effective leadership.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself before we start?
First of all, thank you very much for hosting me today. It's like starting with our deep condolences for the victims of the earthquake in Turkey and Syria. May Allah bless them all, and also hopefully the injured people will be recovered soon. Yes. Yes, my name is Kamal Masri. I have been doing coaching for the last years, 5 years almost. Before that, I worked for 25 years as a management consultant in multiple companies, looking at business as a whole. I enjoyed the people side of managing and leading businesses, and that's where I am right now doing a strategic kind of advisory or coaching for people in all disciplines.
Okay, mashallah, wow. There are a couple of things that we want to talk about today, so I don't want to take too long in the introductions. Let's get right into it. We're talking about the role of communication and effective leadership. So maybe we can start by defining the terms. So, for example, the term leadership. What defines a leader?
Fantastic. Starting with leaders, we all know that leadership is a responsibility. And I would like actually to really make an announcement that everybody is a leader. We all are leaders because we are responsible. We are responsible for ourselves to begin with. And this is what makes us leader, because as we said, leadership is a responsibility, and leaders are responsible for their words. So the world that we're in, we're responsible for the action that we make. We're responsible for the impact we make also on others and on the field. The field, what I'm talking about, is the environment that we operate in. So based on the responsibility, so we are responsible and accountable for that impact. And everybody, as we said, is a leader, and everybody makes an impact. We make impact all the time. I find it interesting when people come to coaching and they are interested to really change their life, to be able to really make impact. So people are astonished that actually when they know that we make impact all the time. The difference is sometimes we are unconscious about the impact we make. So we end up talking in a way that offend others, so we make negative impact. Or if we are conscious, we will make a better choice on the impact we make. So to answer your question is leadership, and this is very important for the topic that we are talking about, because we're talking about communication as an enablement for effective leadership. And so it's good to start with this note that everybody is a leader, and that's where we would like to start from. So nobody can say that this is not applicable to me because I'm not a leader, I'm not managing people, I'm not leading people. It's not really necessary, because we all are leaders because we are responsible for ourselves.
I remember reading something saying there's a difference between a leader and a boss. A boss is someone who just manages people, and they may not be a good leader, but a leader is someone who leads, and like you're saying, everyone is a leader to some capacity. I really love that. It gives
Yeah.
people ownership over what they do and how they interact with other people. That's amazing. So, okay, so we're talking about leadership and we're talking about communication,
Yeah.
like you said, as an enabler of good leadership. So, if we want to define communication, how would we define that? And what are some of the communication skills that we need in leadership to communicate effectively?
Perfect. Before we talk about, again, the skills, it's good to really also talk about communication, what we mean by communication. Everybody knows that actually you and I are talking right now, so we're making communication. People are listening to us. It's part of communication. So I'd like actually to really talk about communication on different levels. There are communication. Sometimes we communicate or we talk to ourselves. So it's like self-communication. And let me give example here or examples that when we go to a restaurant, for instance, and we look at the menu. So in a way that we talk to ourselves and ask ourselves what we are craving for, what we like to eat, and maybe we don't ask ourselves like questions directly, although some people do. But I mean, we go to deep in our selves and see what we feel like eating, for instance. So in a way that this is communication, talking to self. Another example is when somebody comes to you or to me and asking for an advice. What we do is we dig deeper into our past experiences and reflect on the question and give back our answers in a way that we also talked to ourselves here and dig deeper into our experiences and so what is reflected on that. And that type of communication also, which is important, it requires certain skills. And the skill is basically I'm listening to myself. I'm conscious about what thoughts I have in my mind. Because also sometimes we talk to ourselves in a bad way, that we are not good enough, or we are not, we are not capable of doing certain things. So it's like, and this is a result of certain thoughts that actually in our head that we inherited over the years based on the different environments we lived in, maybe from our teacher when we were young, told us that you're not good in this topic. So we grew up thinking this is a reality. And such thoughts trigger certain emotions, and therefore, therefore we make certain reactions in our lives. Based on these thoughts and emotions. So we don't end up making decisions because there is a difference between a decision and a reaction. A reaction, as we said, is a reflection of these thoughts and emotions. My mind is automatically programmed that these thoughts are real. So I end up making reactions. So somebody criticized my report at work and it triggered certain emotions. So my reaction is maybe I will be, separated from the team, and maybe I decide to submit my resignation. That's a reaction, not a decision.
Extreme.
Yeah. Whereby decision is, I'm reflecting on these thoughts. So I talk to myself when somebody criticized my report in that example, for instance, I go back to that thought and say, okay, is this real? What are these emotions that I'm feeling right now, and try to really get to know these kind of emotions and where they're coming from, what triggered such emotions, again going back to these thoughts, and why I'm getting these kind of body languages, for instance. So again, you're talking to yourself, and the successful ones probably will ask him or herself these powerful questions to see, is it real? Are these thoughts real, or they are assumptions somebody made and I'm believing in them? So this is a communication to self. And the skill here is, again, to summarize, is listening to yourself, listening to your thoughts, questioning these thoughts if they are real or not, trying to really know your emotions. And these are the skills needed here in this type of communication. Another communication is like doing one-on-one. I do one-on-one with people I coach. So they do one-on-one with me, obviously. So there's like a relationship. At work there is a leader and there are subordinates and they are talking. At home we talk to our kids. And so it's both ways communication. And in this kind of communication, it's obviously, what we are doing, we are changing words, obviously, and we are making this kind of conversation that are based on the words. But it's not, if we focus only on the words, that you said this, I said that, and we keep exchanging these kind of words, we are not really making effective one-on-one communication, because we are not listening to the whole person. When I talk about the whole person, I'm talking about the mind, the body, and the soul. So give an example. It's like somebody's coming to me, and let's say that I am the leader, or maybe they are, equal. They are some, that one-on-one talking, casual conversation. And so it doesn't have to be like a boss and subordinate, or a coach and coachee, or a leader and an employee. It could be any casual conversation, but they are one-on-one. They're not, there isn't a group. And I'm talking about this type of communication. So if we go into this kind of conversation, and I listen to the whole person, it's not just the words are uttered, and I notice that the person is making certain body language, for instance, or trying to hide certain emotion. I'll be curious, obviously, if the relationship allows me to be curious, because if we're doing one-on-one, to ask questions. So again, I talked about three skills here. I talked about being to notice that, so being curious. So curiosity is one. Looking and hearing to the whole person, not just the words, but I'm hearing you. I'm hearing the emotions that the person is hiding, not willing to talk about it, maybe they haven't even got to know what emotions they have, but being curious will open this kind of communication for the person to really know more about his or her communication, emotion. So hearing, and that's what we call this second level of hearing. Is like I'm hearing you as a whole person, not hearing myself, or hearing the words that you just said in the first example.
Yeah.
So hearing, being curious, and asking questions. And these questions are the powerful questions, that the W questions that you ask: what, when, how, what, when, who, and all this. So it's like to allow the person to really dig deeper into these questions and reflect on them, as opposed to these closed questions that would require yes or no kind of answer. So these are the skills that are very important in this kind of communication, the one-on-one. I would like to add to them another very important skill, which is intuition, being intuitive. And maybe you can, just say, okay, intuition, it doesn't have to be real. I mean, I could say, my intuition tells me that you had a bad day, for instance, or there is something that is bothering you. So that if the person is really going through this kind of bad time, they would say yes or no. So again, these are the skills needed when we have this one-on-one communication. Just to summarize them: listening to the whole person, being curious, asking powerful questions, and being intuitive. Now, moving into a third, communication type of communication, we communicate to. Sometimes we do presentation, or at work, or we perform on stage. Somebody is like stand-up comedy, or somebody singing, or a khatib in masjid that is giving khutbah, a lecturer at the university or school. So it's like, you're talking to an audience and a group of people. and maybe the interaction is not there. So again, that this is the communication, as a type of communication.
Yeah.
So as a leader, how I'm going to be enabled as a leader to really communicate effectively with such a group. I would like to mention that the number one skill needed here is again the hearing skill. And the hearing skill here is the level 3 kind of hearing, which is what we call global hearing. I'm hearing although people are not talking directly to me, but what am I hearing? I'm hearing my impact, the impact I made on such audience. The skill here is to be able to notice not the impact the person made, but maybe the tone of the voice had impact. Maybe the tone was sad, or the words I mentioned or talked, made people a bit sad. So the impact I made on the audience is sadness. And the powerful thing for a leader to have here is to being able to switch that impact he or she made on the audience from sad to whatever other impact wants to make, maybe moving them to another extreme, like being bubbly or being happy, or so it's like that's the skill required here is being able to listen and globally to what's happening in the field with the audience. Another very important skill that is needed here, and also in all other level of communication, is knowing more about yourself as a leader, or as we establish a leader as everybody. We all are leaders. And knowing your type, what is my personality type? Because there are these different personality types that people are familiar with. So it's good to know these kind of how people are really perceiving me or seeing me. So what are my characteristics? And because knowledge is power. So if you know your characteristics and your type of personality, you'll be able to really capitalize on these strengths that you have to be able to really be more compelling when you do this kind of presentation or talks or performance. So knowing your type is extremely important. I would like to add to them also another skill is being as authentic as possible. Authenticity is extremely important skill, habit, style, whatever you want to label it as. And that doesn't really come easily for people to be themselves, especially when they are performing in front of group. I know there are certain anxiety probably going there, but it's very important for people to learn how to really be authentic, being themselves, and that a journey that we normally take people through in coaching to have that kind of authenticity. And once it's there, you won't believe how compelling the person will be, or will in the presentation or the performing in front of a large audience. Very important also just to mention also when people and how they communicate publicly, there are different types of tests that people can do to know if they are the type of like to give information. They are informative kind of presenters, or there are maybe there are type of presenters who are motivating kind of present. So it's good to really also do that kind of assessment to see what is your style of communication. At least you know your strength, and you know the areas that you want to build on based on the type of public speaking or presentation is required. Maybe the presentation required is informative, and you are good at being a motivator kind of speaker. So these are, as you can see, there are many skills, and they are very, very much intertwined with related to all these type of of communication. So I hope I wasn't.
Yeah, very. Oh my God, there's so much information in just a little short time. Like what if someone is very shy and like they have a hard time networking, so that I think is like more one-on-one, but of course shy people then would also have a really hard time on camera or in front of a group of people. Like they just get nervous around people and then they don't know what to say. What about those people?
Yeah, I mean, it's natural for some people. Not everybody. Again, as I said, that we have different types of personalities. I mean, there are the people who are shy, people who are more kind of forward. There are people, so it's like it's good to know again, where you're coming from, and it's a training. It's like it's starting with knowing who you are and the type of why knowing your type. At least you would know what you're comfortable with. And it's very important, I mean, for those, I would like to really maybe just to share some hints, maybe they will help. It's like if I'm shy, I'm going to a new gathering, for instance, and a group of people, and they are talking, because maybe people get shy more than in group rather than one-on-one, because one-on-one, it depends, if I'm getting in one-on-one, chances that we create this kind of environment that is more kind of trusting and allowing people to really talk. But in a group of people, it's very important, very difficult to really make that the same acquaintance when you do one-on-one. But let's assume that a person is kind of shy. What my hints are is to really be acquainted with the place. If I'm going to really being a panelist, for instance, in a panel with a group of people, and I'm shy to really speak, I recommend that people to really be acquainted to be familiar with the environment, of the place, looking around and just, what is the environment I'm in, looking at the windows, looking at the ceilings, looking at the people, and just being safe, feeling safe that, the place I'm in, trying to communicate casually with people just to get, again, comfortable and, acquainted with the people around you as well. So it's like touching on the areas that the person is kind of have concerns. I'm assuming here the person might have certain fears, so I'm addressing the fear by being acquainted with the environment, and it depends on the other fear, the fear the person has on. Maybe has different areas of fear that actually, will be addressed. The solution will be addressed based on those as well.
So everyone has like their unique thing then, and you have to figure out what the issue is, who are you, and then what communication style is most like you or you're most inclined towards, and then build up on that basically and make that like just better and more effective.
Absolutely, you're correct. I mean, the other day I was, preparing for this, I thought about one type of communication, which is like, when you are in a group kind of setting, and it's a casual kind of conversation with family, friends. And not everybody is in a way is talkative, for instance. Maybe there are some people who dominate the conversation. So it's like if people are left out, it's not everybody has to speak, but if in case that you want actually to speak, the discussion that I had with some people is, how to really, break, because, there are sometimes people don't pause enough for you to really jump in and say something. It's just continuously conversation. So, I came up with an idea that sometimes people are talking about issues or topics, especially different topics. So if you go and say, okay, I agree with everything that has been said, let's say they're talking about three things, and if I agree with everything, and you start with that, it's just you haven't said anything that is controversial, and you haven't said anything different. So it's like people will take it for granted and will continue, and you won't have the time to speak. Whereby, and this is maybe just for, there is no science behind it, it's just experience. I'd like to hear your thought as well. It's like when you come in and you want to say something, maybe you can say, there is one point that I disagree with, and if you have a different point of view, and to really, because once you say that, in my opinion, you might get the attention of people. Because if you agree, you will take you for granted. If you have something different to say, people will listen, and you will feel, you have a space to
Yeah.
say something. So I thought of this, style that again
Yeah.
it has no science behind it, but maybe you can share.
They say that people who disagree, not disagree all the time, like are not agreeable at all, but who occasionally disagree when they truly disagree with what's being said or what's being done, and they do it respectfully, of course, they are more likable, I think,
Yeah,
is what was said. They're more likable because people perceive them as authentic and they're honest and they're telling the truth and they're not trying to be like a fake best version of themselves, and just agree with everything that the person in front of them is saying. So I think it's like it's a really good tip. And you're right, it gets people's attention. And oh, okay, this person, wants to share a different opinion, and that's very brave to be able to do that. Yeah,
yeah. And it maps to the skills that we talked about before, is being curious, So it's like, going in with a different kind of point of view, with questions to really, have people have reflection on these type of questions. So it's like, again, you can bring the skills that we talked about into this kind of conversation, like the powerful questions and being curious to these conversations. And over time, once people try and do these kind of skills and train themselves on these kind of skills, they will be more kind of courageous to engage in conversations, and it will enable them to really be more effective leaders going forward.
Mhm. If someone has like a speech coming up, for example, or they're talking to a large audience or they're performing, or like you were saying, are they able to sit with you and you help them go through that particular speech and help them like eloquently deliver it, or is that something
Yes,
different?
absolutely. It's one of the areas that we look at. It's not like a speech therapy or a speech, it's a coaching, but rather it's just knowing what the person is really fearing from, and trying to overcome these kind of challenges. Because I'm fearing, and so coaching will enable the person to step on these kind of barriers,
Mm-hmm.
so they won't see these issues. So yes, to answer your question, yes, correct.
Okay, awesome. And then, sorry, another question.
Yeah.
You mentioned something I'm so interested in, and that's body language.
Yes.
Because you're saying a part of your communication is not just the words that you're saying or hearing, it's also the tone, it's also the body language. What are some things that people do wrong with their body language that makes them ineffective communicators?
Yeah, it's like again, the perspective I was talking about is, when you are talking to someone, pay attention to all of these things. Pay attention to the whole person, and that includes
Mm-hmm.
the body language and also the emotions. And the emotion is being reflected by the voice, the tone. Very important. So being curious to really ask the questions, what's going on here? I mean, I noticed that your voice is shaking, or I noticed that you're nervous, because you can tell when people are shaking their hands, or they're nervous. But to answer your question about what is the most effective way, or that's a session in itself, but just to give it like in a quick way, eye contact is extremely important. Also, although sometimes we tend to really, if we think, we look different ways, or look at our eyes on left or right, or but it's very important to really establish eye contact. Extremely important. It doesn't happen all the time, because again, sometimes if the person is going through certain emotion, they will not be able to really create this kind of eye contact all the time. But it's the having it depends again on the body language that you have on different it's different communication styles. If you are doing presentation versus I'm doing like casual conversation, there are some posture that actually will, demonstrate that you are more confident. How you stand, claiming the space that you're in. So there are different postures that it will come naturally. I mean, for people, it's not like they're trying to, fake them, but it's good to be trained on them, and it's good to know when you make these kind of body language, what emotions you're experiencing at that point. So every posture could mean something different. But that's a very good question that maybe it requires
It
a
requires
session by it.
its own live, right?
Absolutely.
Body
Absolutely.
language. Yes, absolutely. I think in my life, the most thing that's helped me with communication is probably when I was in university doing my master's, we were doing interviews on by phone and recording them. And then after that, you have to transcribe it for the research. So you have to listen to your interview all over again. And when I listened, I think I did almost 100. Did I do 100 interviews? No, less than that, but it was a lot of interviews. And after listening to myself so many times, I realized all of the things I was doing wrong. Like if I cut off people too much, I say too much, I say like too much. When you have to write it down what you're saying, you really notice everything.
It's good to mention that actually phone communication. It's like sometimes we do communication, obviously, or like over the internet, or doing these kind of video calls or phone call. Okay, it's like also these are types of communication that we are not really sitting in front of each other and creating this kind of harmony, and so also the tone of listening is also more powerful, for me at least, over the phone than on person, because you will be able to really focus more on the tone of the person. So again, it's like communication is so powerful. So it's not just limited to being on one-on-one or being face-to-face kind of communication, but it could be in all types of communication. The era we live in today has many options for us to communicate. It requires us to be effective in using all these kind of media to communicate.
That's actually, this is such a good point, because even today I was going to send a text message, and I thought, you know what, this is a very sensitive topic. And if I send a text message, they will not hear my tone. They will not see my body language. They won't know how I feel about the situation. So I sent a voice note instead, because I couldn't call them at the time, at the very least to give them this sense of, okay, how am I feeling as I'm saying what I'm saying? So that's such a good point. And then what communication method do you use for certain situations?
Amazing. You opened another important topic as well, which is communication via text, or written communication, emails. Because I mean, the era we live in today, also it's a lot of email. So again, in emails is everybody has his or her own practices and how to. We have our own communication styles. But as recipients, sometimes we receive emails, and sometimes the emails are we perceive them in different ways. Maybe they're not the same way they are intended to be. Sometimes I get emails say, why the person is talking to me this way. I assume. I'm sure it happens with all of us.
Everyone.
So there are, again, related to our topic today, how to communicate, written kind of communication, and to be effective in this kind of communication. Some tips I used to apply before sending the email. I used to have delays on the email, so I said send, and it's I used to do a setting in my outbox to delay it by 5 minutes. So by the time I go make coffee, come back, I might have changed the thoughts. Maybe I was, again, as we said, sometimes we react and not make decisions. So I was triggered by certain the tone of the sender. So I reply in a way, and that won't really help. So sometimes slowing down and write the email as is, but don't send it. Take a walk, come back again, and you will definitely have different perspective on the email and on the content that you will write.
Yes. Oh my God, so true. Sleep on it, everybody. Give it 24 hours.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's happened so many times where
But
people wish they didn't send an email too
exactly.
soon.
Yeah. So that's one tip. The second one is, again, sometimes uh, we don't clarify. So I get an email from you, and I assume that you are upset from me, and that's why the tone is this way. Maybe the mood that I'm in now when I receive your email, because of the mood I'm in, I'm reading and interpreting your email in certain ways. So
Yeah.
an advice here is to clarify. What is meant by this? So it's like the clarification, because most of the time, if we don't, we are the victim of our own judgment of others, prejudgment. So it's important practice, and we have made the prejudgment ourselves, so not the person sent it. So I
Mhm.
assume that you wrote it in a certain protocol, but it's my assumptions. So I'm responsible. Again, going back to the first point, leaders are responsible. So
Mhm.
out of my responsibility as a leader, and I am a leader, any person is a leader, as we said. So out of my
Yeah.
responsibility, I should clarify with Dan and say, okay, what did you mean here? I mean, I heard, I got this as you're upset. So maybe getting the clarification
Yeah.
would help me as a recipient more than help you, by the way, because you will be on the
Mhm.
other end, clarify or clearing these assumptions for me.
Mhm.
But it will definitely help me as a recipient and want to respond by clarifying more. It will help me, and it will help the relationship be better, because again, communication is an enabler for effective communication
Mhm.
for leaders. But what would communication do? Effective communication would enable also better relationship, and
Mhm.
that's what we ultimately want. I mean, we engage in conversation to what is the result? I mean, I communicate, yes, no, yeah, and then ultimately we want actually to collaborate,
Mhm.
and that collaboration come from effective relationship.
Mhm.
So it's not just although we're talking about communication here, but it's not just if we put it in its context, it's communication will enable relationship, and relationship will enable collaboration between us as humans. So
Mhm.
it's the benefit is far beyond just enjoying that conversation,
Mhm.
but it will create really will make better human from out of us, and collaborate and live peacefully and successfully in this
Mhm.
society, or whatever environment
Yeah.
we operate in.
Yeah, yeah, that's great advice. Clarification and a good reminder, I think, for everybody to clarify before they jump to conclusions and assume the worst. Yeah, I think there was a psychologist that was saying the first 5 years of marriage, when someone is asking for a divorce, usually it's because of communication issues, and then after 5 years, it's usually because of I think it was
Assumptions.
companionship issues. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yes, so the first 5 years of marriage, people are still trying to learn just how to communicate with each other so that they understand each other's intention, understand what they mean by things. And so I love this advice of clarifying, because it's so easy to hear your partner say something and say, what, what did you mean by that?
Yeah, and if we are lazy to clarify, I mean, it's again, we make ourselves like the victim. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, and that's what will end the relationship as well,
Mhm.
because it's like, I live out of my assumptions.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's how to really build what we call intimate relationship. It doesn't have to be intimacy. It's like
Mhm.
intimacy. It's like it's like seeing me, seeing
Yeah.
through me.
Yeah.
So the more that you clarify, is that it will create this kind of intimacy kind of relationship. So
Yeah.
I'll be as transparent to you as possible, because allowing you to clarify your assumptions with me, and I witness. And you can imagine how the benefit will be for the relationship when we allow ourselves to clarify.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Okay, well, thank you so much. I feel like every single thing we talked about, we can have a full live on. So thank you so much for summarizing everything into one live for everybody. Inshallah, we'll have this live on IGTV, and also we will tag you so that people have access to both accounts or from both accounts. And also, if you want to book a session with Kamal Masri, you'll find him on Faith Consulting under life coaching and leadership coaching. And that's it for now. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact Kamal on his account. And inshallah, we'll see you soon.
Inshallah. Thank you very much, Dana.
Thank you.
Take care. Pleasure.
Salam.
Bye. Bye.